Okay. Can you list the books of the letter of St. Paul? How many there are? How many letters we have for St. Paul? 14. One? Huh? What's the first one? Uh-huh.
Romans.
Okay, thank you.
Corinthians.
2.
Corinthians.
First.
1 Corinthians.
Corinthians. 2 Corinthians.
And Galatians. Is that the next one?
4. Galatians.
Ephesians.
5. Ephesians. 6. Philippians. 7. 8. First Thessalonians. 9. 2nd. 10. Hebrews. What did we say about Romans? What is the Romans?
The Gospel of St. Paul.
It's the Gospel of St. Paul. What is the message that he gives?
Faith by righteousness.
Righteousness by faith. Right? The righteousness of God by faith. And then the second one? First Corinthians. What's the main message? There is stuff that relates to the churches. What was the problem of the First Corinthian church?
The guy.
The first church. What's that?
The guy.
The
The guy.
the guy. That's one of the problems.
Idol worship.
So it was sectarianism.
Perfectionism.
What's sectarianism?
Like different, like
Sects. The church is sects. We versus them, or in a better way to put it, cliques. Like a group. Oh, how horrible, man. That's an awful church when they have cliques that's not open, right? And nobody. So I learned something is good for you to learn as a servant. People don't learn from one sermon. I have to say something. I repeat my sermons. You've noticed that?
Yes.
And
From Saturday to Sunday. Yeah.
not just that, I repeat them over years. Like the same sermon, like say for the Samaritan woman, most of the sermon is repeated. And I see people coming, wow, Buna, I've never heard that before. I said, like, no, you heard it. No, you did. But the problem is, the first time it didn't get absorbed. So sectarianism, I talk about cliques, and I'm going to talk about cliques until you are no more a clique. Because I hate it when you're closed and you're not open and you become us versus them. And it's our clique, it's our thing, and it becomes my identity, and I protect it, and I don't want anybody to come into it because they are them, right? Or me versus her, or me versus him. That's sectarianism. So in the Church of Corinth, there was a group of people who said we belong to Peter, the group would belong to Paul, the group would belong to Apollos, and the group said we don't belong to any of that, we belong to Christ. And St. Paul talks about that. What else? The fights they had with sectarianism came the fights in the church. They used to take each other to the court. And then what? More sexual? Because they lived where? Why there's sexual immorality? Because they lived in Corinth. What was Corinth? A center for Aphrodite. What is the Aphrodite? Who is Aphrodite?
The Greek goddess of love.
Love. And her temple who hosted 1,000 priestesses. And their job was sexual immorality. This is a goddess that people worship by sex. So that city was known for the liberal sexuality, the promiscuity. So remember the letter letter to the Ignitus. They say in that letter, as one person sending it to the Ignitus, nobody knows who wrote the letter. It says, the Christians are not different by their clothes or their name, but their manner of life. They say they share one table, but they don't share one bed. What does that mean? Hint, hint. What does it mean for a group of people to share one bed? They,
Just like,
yeah, they share their wives and their husbands and everything. So they share one table means they eat together, but then when they go to bed, they go separately. So this is something that was in Corinth. Okay, what else in that? What else was sectarianism, civil lawsuits, and sexual immorality? What else we said about the 1 Corinthians? The meat offered to idols. Meat to idols. There was an issue. Of should we eat the meat offered to idols or not? So St. Paul said, if you know that somebody knows that it is offered to idols, don't eat it. Why? Because that other person might think you are actually worshiping the idol by eating their sacrifices. So if for the conscience of the person that watches you, so that he's putting here as a standard. Don't do something that would cause a scandal for someone else. Right? Okay. The 2 Corinthians, it's a follow-up. 2 Corinthians have something beautiful to say about prayer. Has the sinner restored. And we saw a little bit of St. Paul's heart toward what he's doing in the church. Galatians.
fruit of the Spirit.
True, but it is
True and false gospel.
the true and false gospel. False gospel of going back to Moses. He struggled with that because they were the Judaizers. We talked about the Judaizers who insisted that the Gentiles have to be Jews before they become Christians and to follow all the law of Moses. So this is where it's actually at its height. He talked about it here from the positive point of view. In this, he talks about it. So the false gospel. Ephesians, a famous letter, one of the most important. What was the main point in Ephesians? The church. Ecclesiology. It's a beautiful piece about ecclesiology. Philippians, it's a very specific letter to a beloved church. His favorite. Paul, love and affection. And also what? His devotion to Christ. To the church, that Philippians is his love and affection. Colossians talks about the cosmic, we're going to talk about that today, cosmic Christ. The 1st and 2nd Thessalonians, there is mainly things about the second coming, end of times. Thanks to St. Paul, we know the thought of the apostles from his writings. 1st and 2nd Timothy and Titus. These are pastoral letters to bishops. Pastoral letters. What is the bishop supposed to be? Philemon, very special. About who? About the slave. His name is Onesimus. It's one chapter. One chapter. It's about Onesimus. We'll come to it. And letter to the Hebrews will leave by itself. It's actually talking about Jewish thought in general, how the Jewish tradition, the Israelites have tradition that leads them to Christ. Or we can say Christ and Christ in the Old Testament, if I want to put that. Christ in the Old Testament. So we're in Colossians, right? We're coming to Colossians. So let us read together the Colossians quickly. So let us focus on it. 1 second. Anybody likes a verse or something? First of all, he talks about, the focus is on the gospel, the true gospel, right? He speaks about it, the true gospel. That means there is also a false gospel, right? So what is the background? The background of this letter is a heresy that permeated the Colossians, or the church of the Colossians. It is, they call it the Gnostics. They have some terminology in this letter. It's different than the usual for St. Paul. When St. Paul writes, some people disputed that this is written by St. Paul because of the terminology, the vocabulary, the words. But they say these words are the Gnostics. Now when he says, for example, the firstborn of all creation. Over all creation, the firstborn over all creation. For by him all things were created that are in heaven, principalities, dominions. So these vocabularies are used because there's something that the Colossians have, which I said before, the letters of St. Paul is different than the St. Peter and St. James. That's the difference is, remember? What is the difference between St. Paul letters and the letters of the Catholicon, the universal letters? Any idea? Difference? So when you say the letters of St. James, why we call them universal? That's a question on your test. Now we're waking up. Why we call the letters of St. James, Peter, and John universal, and Jude?
Because they were not for any
specific church. So one more thing, because those specific churches had specific problems. So what is the problems for the Colossians? That's a heresy, and the heresy is Gnosticism. Gnostics. What did Gnostics believe? Gnostics had there are different types of them. What they believe is salvation is by knowledge. Salvation is by, that's what I call it, Gnostics, from knowledge. Knowing. So they believed a certain thing. For example, they believed, what did the Gnostics in Colossians believe? They believed that Christianity and the apostolic teaching was primitive, very, very basic knowledge, not going to save anybody. They have greater knowledge and better access to spiritual things. They imagine that the hierarchy of spiritual powers, like angels in heaven, principalities, they were supreme, bigger than Christ. Like archangels, and there are actually higher ranks of heavenly being, higher than the Son. Christ was not unique in his divine nature. He's not God, but one of several mediators. Sin resulted from a lack of knowledge, gnosis, that's knowledge. A particular sort of knowledge in which the heretics were specialists, and salvation consisted in having this knowledge imparted by a series of ritual and ascetic practices. But Christian baptism was considered a mere low-level initiation. So I want to write those things that they believed, the heresy, so you understand. So they were they originated actually maybe in the Essenes, in the Essene sect of the Judaism. The Essenes called themselves the children of light, and they said that they have the knowledge of salvation. So let me tell you what they think. One, to combat the false heresy, or the heresy, the Gnostics' heresy. So what they said, 1a, the hierarchy of celestial powers, the angels, they were supreme rather than Christ. The hierarchy of supreme celestial powers. So above Christ. They were thinking that there are certain angels or archangels or cherubim or other things. So St. Paul would list them. Dominions, principalities, authorities, powers. These have higher ranks than the Son. That's the first thing. B, Christ was not unique in his divine nature nor in his action, for he was not God but one of several mediators. Christ was not God but one of several mediators. C. Sin resulted from lack of knowledge. Actually, a particular sort of knowledge. A particular sort of knowledge. Of course, who would have it? Yes? So you're not going to see it until I teach you. That's what they say. You cannot be taught by anybody else. They have to be the specialist. We have that today, don't we? And the heretics were specialists in which were the specialist. 4D, the fourth and last point. Salvation is, that's the main one. Salvation is by acquiring that knowledge through a series of rituals. baptism, Christian baptism, was considered a low level initiation. A low level initiation. So these are the 4 points that this people initiation. I'm sorry, my handwriting started to be slanted because I'm going. So the Gnostics, 4 main points. They have a lot of other things to talk about, but these are the main ones that I think we should know, because this would explain the letter. That there is hierarchy in heaven. Christ is not really higher than those big people. You remember in the C.S. Lewis again? He's putting all that stuff in there. And the creation of Narnia, when there was what? Jadis, the queen of Chan, whom the kids went to bring. She kind of hang on to them. And then they brought her to Narnia before it was created. And here is the lion going back and forth, singing his song and creating things. And the queen got so irritated, and she had a bar from a lamp post, and she hit the lion with it. And the bar hit the lion between the eyes, hit it here, very hard, very heavy stuff. It didn't even seem like it felt the bar, and went on. What's he trying to say? That the lion is, in all the stories, the lion is bigger than. She came from celestial kingdom, some other realm that is actually very powerful, very strong. What C.S. Lewis is saying, that Christ is stronger above that. They cannot touch him. So that's what he's combating it right in Narnia. The lion is the sun, and Jadis is a celestial power, one of those principalities, one of those dominions. What St. Paul say, don't be naive, and the Jews knows there's principalities, there's authorities, there's powers, there's dominions, not just angels, archangels. There's a lot of other things and kingdoms that we cannot think of, God created, and they are not above the sun. But the heresy would say they actually are above the sun. When you remember when the liturgy, when we say, what do we say? We say, those who are seated stand, before whom stand, right? The angels, the archangels, the principalities, the authorities, the thrones, the dominions, and the powers. So this list is actually in the letters of St. Paul. We bring it from there. Now the second point is Christ was not God, but one of several mediators. There is other mediators. So these leaders here in heaven have the same power as Christ. That's the Gnostics. And we try to or access their mediation through rituals. Sin resulted from lack of knowledge, a particular sort of knowledge, not any knowledge, in which the heretics were, of course, suspicious. You want to be saved, you have to get this knowledge from us. Salvation is acquiring that knowledge through rituals. Baptism was the first level, the basic. It's not very advanced. Okay? Once I know this, I want us to read the letter with this idea, with this sense. Read it with this sense and come up. Let's do this today as an activity. Read the letter. Let's read it together. Read it as quick or as slow as you want. And then find me answers, as if the letter is answering these 4 points, and show me where it does. Okay? So you're awake. Sometimes when somebody does the work for you, you sleep until they finish. Oh, Mom is cooking. When you finish cooking, please, and the food is on the table, wake me up.
Yes.
Baba's mowing the lawn until we go to eat the dinner outside. So Baba, when you finish, please come in before you wash your face or take a shower. Wake me up because I need to be ready for dinner. I'm not going to do that. You mow the lawn. Go ahead. So take the letter, read it, and I'll read it with you. And we'll come maybe after 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And It's 4 chapters, and let's read it. Maybe we'll take like 15 minutes. Read it and we'll take 5 minutes to discuss the important verses. How about that? Okay? You can divide yourself in groups and read it together if you want.
Give me Bible.
Okay? You can get the Bibles if you want. Give them to other people.
He's getting something.
Okay, let's read together and then stop and tell me what you think. I wrote some stuff here that we will try to do. One of the things I needed to add, so we said the 4 points of the heretics, right?
Yeah.
And that's St. Paul's trying to counteract. There is something here called basic principles of the world.
St. Paul.
That is actually philosophy. The philosophers and the Gnostics have this idea of the basic principles of the world. So, for example, the basic elements of matter, ancient teaching, there are 4, right? Water, air, fire, and earth.
Earth.
Yeah. Avatar, that's old philosophy. Water, air, fire, and earth. The second point you have as the basic principles of the world, the laws that regulate the universe, especially those conditioning fallen human life. They control. Like, what are the rules that the fallen human life play with? Like, for example, with all due respect, counseling. What do we do in counseling? We're trying to fix problems, right? Either in a person, in a couple, or in a family,
Right.
or in a group of people, or even a country. How do you fix it, and based on what? What is your resources in fixing? You don't have medicines outside what we have, so you're trying to work with the mentality and the ideas of a fallen human. You can't talk to saints. You can't talk about heavenly stuff. You cannot talk about, when you say Christian counselor, he's trying to say, I'm going to play with rules a bit outside the box. What is the box that everybody's playing with? You understand, like when you mediate between couples, you don't tell them love is selfless.
No.
You can't say that. You're going to talk your rights and my rights. What condition is that?
Okay.
That is fallen, right? That's not Christ-like. Jesus never said, my rights and your rights. He said, whatever you need, I'll do it, even if it takes my life. So the laws that regulate the universe, especially those conditioning falling human life. So what are they? Death. You're always talking with the end. The end is death, right? That's a condition. What else? Sin. You're always watching out for people to do something defensive driving, right? The flesh, which means the desires and the weaknesses and limitations of the flesh. Mosaic law, circumcision, all that stuff. So these are called the laws that regulate the universe, especially those regulating conditioning fallen life. The Mosaic law was not made for saints. Do not commit adultery. Is that for a saint? You're going to go to saints and say, do not commit adultery? Say, what's that? Do not honor your parents. They would say, is there anything like dishonoring parents? Is it even heard about? You see? But because we live in a fallen world, we needed these things. So the counselors have no way of talking to regular humans without keeping in mind these issues, right? Now, the third one, the spirits. These are under the basic principles. So we talk about the philosophy. They are the spirits that use our fallen humanity and what conditions it against us. So they use our selfishness. They use our lack of love. They use our judgment, our judgmental attitude to cause us to be in trouble. So these are using conditions to oppose Christ, which are at the core of the pagan cult and system of knowledge. So when the Gnostics teach, he says you have to appease and calm down those spirits. If you want to get to God, you're going to have to deal with these spirits. And you have to work with them. The last one is human traditions which opposes God tradition, like anything that the culture actually gives us. Halloween, for example. These are the things that St. Paul is going to talk about. These are called the basic principles of. This is. It seems like a term, a common terminology. This is not St. Paul trying to say something on his own. He's bringing in something that everybody should know what it is. So these are the points that is. So and we're gonna start reading and just put these two things in the green and the black in mind. Let's go. So you wanna go read Valerie again one more time? Sorry. Go ahead.
Do you want me to start from
Yeah.
one?
Yes. Yes. And stop me if you had written anything about this. Stop me. Okay. I think we could do Colossians because it's very rich. Go ahead.
Paul, an apostle of Jesus Christ by the will of God, and Timothy our brother, to the saints and faithful brethren in Christ who are in Colossae, grace to you and peace from God our Father and the Lord Jesus Christ. We give thanks to God.
He puts Jesus to the Father. He doesn't include anybody else. Meaning that when he says peace,
B for B, right?
yes, exactly.
Right.
That there is equality. He doesn't put any names with Christ to the Father. The Father and Christ, and that's it, right? That's all what you need to know. Go ahead.
We give thanks to the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, praying always for you, since we heard of your faith in Christ Jesus and of your love for all the saints.
I like him because he always starts with a positive note, right? You're good in this, right? You're good in faith and love. He commend them for the virtues, the theological virtues, right? So there's always faith, love, and hope. You're going to always hear it in St. Paul. So verse 4 says, love and faith. How about verse 5?
Because of the hope which is laid up for you.
Right. So the three, he can commend them for the three verses. He always looks for them. Looks for faith, hope, and in your service, look for faith, hope, and love. In your service, to bring somebody to be like Christ, you're going to have to work on these three verses. These are the fundamental things to work on. That they have faith, and they show it in their lives. They have love for one another, right? And they have hope. They're living, hoping to reach heaven. So what is hope? Hope means I hope. That means I wish. I'm waiting for it to happen. Laid up for you in heaven. What is that? What's the hope always? Hope in
Eternity.
eternity. I always say that. Faith is what Christ had done and the church doing. Love is the practice of me with one another, considering you as my family, not just my immediate flesh family. And that's because that's the church. And the third one is hope in whatever God's going to do to me in eternity. Yes, Sandra, I want to say something. Have this yellow smile on your face. Yes, what is this?
Once you get the faith, hope, love tattoo.
I'm not getting it.
Don't do it.
I know.
Okay. It's crazy. Tattoo في عينك. Go. Yeah.
Because of the hope which is laid up for you in heaven, of which you heard before in the word of the truth of the gospel, which has come to you as it is also in all the world.
Why he said the word of truth?
C. Part 2.
Yeah, but it's because that living by the will of God, which is the gospel, the true knowledge, versus the wrong knowledge, right? Okay.
Which has come to you as it is also in all the world, and is bringing forth fruit as it has also among you since the day you heard and knew the grace of God in truth.
What is the point of fruit? He's going to say it more than one time.
What?
No, why he's saying it brings fruit?
Oh, because it's like profitable, like to work with.
Because Jesus said, you know them by their fruits. If they produce good fruits, then definitely you say that the sowing is good, right? It's true.
As you also learned from Epaphras, our dear fellow servant, who is a faithful minister of Christ on your behalf, who also declared to us your love in the Spirit. For this reason we also, since the day we heard it, do not cease to pray for you and to ask that you may be filled with the knowledge of His will in all wisdom and spiritual
You
understanding.
want to say something?
4.
Say yes.
I put 4.
D?
Yeah, because it's knowledge. He's praying for them to have the real knowledge, not the knowledge of the not the knowledge of the Gnostics, right? Because Gnostics is about knowledge. So he's saying, I pray that you be filled.
Knowledge of God.
Yes.
Strengthened with all might according to his glorious power for all patience and long-suffering with joy, giving thanks to the Father who has qualified us to be partakers of the inheritance of the saints in the light. He has delivered us from the power of darkness and conveyed us into the kingdom of the Son of his love, in whom we have redemption through his blood, the forgiveness of sins. He is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn over all creation.
So he says, through his blood.
I have this for the second.
Blood? Which part?
13 and 15.
Has delivered us from the power of darkness and conveyed us into the kingdom of the Son of his love. Yeah. Right? He has the kingdom. Christ is the king.
So wouldn't that be under B?
Yeah. Christ was not God, but one of several mediators, right?
So that's verse what?
And A and B actually, right? A and B. Because Christ is above. We're going to say that too. Okay? Good. He's the image.
He is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn over all creation. For by him all things were
Anything there? Firstborn over all creation?
16 there. Yeah. The
Yes.
hierarchy.
Yes. He's a hierarchy. Right? What does it mean, the firstborn over all creation? Meaning,
That he came first.
right? But he is the son. He is the son of his father that actually has the same dominion over all creation, everything created. Okay? Now look at the prepositions, the by, for, in, these prepositions. Look for them in this verse 16. First one is for by him, right? Go ahead.
For by him all things were created that are in heaven and that are on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or dominions or principalities or powers. All things were created
Through him
for him.
and for him.
So that would be A again.
I said A and B.
A and B, yes, yes.
Okay, Robbie.
But I think it's more A, definitely more A.
Well, I put it in A, but I also put
But you see now he's answering to, that's what I'm trying to point is, he's answering to certain issues. He's not just saying poetical stuff. So he is the firstborn over all creation, by him, through him, and for him. One thing we can say, for him. What does it mean for him? You ask, I go visit the house and said, oh, this is a beautiful dresser. Oh, we bought it for our son. Then the existence of the dresser in the room or the house, the reason for the existence is
For the son.
the son or the daughter, whatever they are actually. So these creation, everything that's made, including ourselves, is made for
A reason.
Christ. Christ is the reason of our existence. That's something we need to kind of assimilate, and it would transform us if we really live it, that we are created for him, right? Okay.
And he is before all things, and in him all things consist.
That would be A again, right?
I did 16 to 20 is A.
Yeah.
And he is the head of the body, the church, who is the beginning, the firstborn from the dead, that in all things he may have the preeminence.
Here is something.
Which is
So he's
A again.
first, he is the first, he is the head of the created things. But then he is the head of the new creation too. Right? Because what is the church? The church is a new creation. By the resurrection of the dead, Jesus has actually moved from the old system of creation to a new system. So this is the new creation. So he's the head of the old creation, and he's also the head of the new creation, right?
I put that one under B.
Christ was not God, but one of several mediators. So he's going to talk about the mediators here, right? Okay.
For it pleased the Father that in him all the fullness should dwell.
Oh, here we go. That is all the fullness of what? This is one of the terminologies the Gnostics use. The fullness, when they say the fullness, they mean the spirits, the principalities, the authorities, the fullness of the house. Like you say, oh, everything I bought here is for my wife. So she's the reason of the fullness of the house. You go to the house and it's empty. You say, the fullness of the house is my wife's, then you say, you don't really love your wife. You say the fullness here means the content of the creation, right? The content. So it pleased the Father that in Him all the fullness should dwell. Like that, everything in heaven, including principalities, dominions, authorities, throne and powers, they're all in Him. That's called the fullness. So the fullness is one of the terminologies, the vocabularies that St. Paul usually don't use, but he used it in Colossians because that's a term used by the heretics. He used it specifically to answer that point. All right? We get it? Okay.
And by Him to reconcile all things to Himself, by Him, whether things on earth or things in heaven, having made peace through the blood of His cross.
So the Gnostics would say, to reach God, you have to climb the ladder of spiritual beings. There is a bureaucracy. You have to go through the hierarchy. You have to go from one angel to another angel. So you appease one, and you become friends with one. You worship one, and then when you get done with the worship of the one, and they are happy with you, you do what? They move you to the next, and then they move you to the next, until you reach God. So what's he saying here? What did God the Father do? To reconcile all things to Himself by Him means you don't need hierarchy. You don't need to go through the offices. All what you need to is to know Christ. And through Christ, you are immediately reconciled to the Father. So that bureaucracy is cancelled. So in the pagan system of Gnostics, you have to worship certain angels. To really reach the worship of God, you have to go through certain... This is not what we do for like Archangel Raphael, Archangel. This is not the meaning. It's like you cannot speak to God directly. You have to go through that ritual of hierarchy. You worship this angel, and when you go to the higher angel, and you go to a higher angel until you reach the very big office, and then you can actually... So it becomes like the belt of karate, you know? Have to go through the white belt and gradually grow into your practice until you reach the black belt and become a master of karate. So this, he's saying, you don't need none of this. You need to go through Christ. Sometimes the non-traditional church, the groups of Christians that say, you do the same. We do the same. You don't need anyone. You don't need St. Mary. You don't need this. You don't need this. So they mix up what we do with intercession, because we don't really need to go through St. Mary and only St. Mary to reach Christ. We use her as an helper, an intercessor. We already have our prayers and our worship to Christ, but we use her. She's not between. She is with. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Like I'm not looking to her to go through her. I'm actually have her as my help. Right? Okay. Continue. Mm-hmm.
But you who once were alienated and enemies in your mind by wicked works, yet now He has reconciled in the body of His flesh through death.
Why is the body of His flesh? Because spirits don't have flesh. So for Him to become our immediate mediator, He has to become one of us, and we actually, through Him, through His flesh, then these spirits don't have body. So how can they become our... The Hebrew will say they will never be able to feel us. That's why they don't respect us. The language that the angel used with the apostles and with us is very condescending. Right? I said that many times. Because they have no understanding of our own weakness. So they look down on us. But then Christ took our flesh and took our humanity, so He was tried and tempted in everything. So He knows us, so He is our true mediator. That's why He says, by the body of His flesh, through death, to present you holy, and blameless.
Through death, to present you holy and blameless, and above reproach in His sight. If indeed you continue in the faith, grounded and steadfast, and are not moved away from the hope of the gospel which you heard, which was preached to every creature under heaven, of which I, Paul, became a minister.
Why is he saying that he is a minister? He wants to remind them they are under his authority as their apostle, right? Okay.
And I rejoice in my sufferings for you, and fill up in my flesh what is lacking in the afflictions of Christ, for the sake of his body, which is the church, of which I became a minister according to the stewardship from God, which was given to me for you, to fulfill the word of God.
What is lacking in the affliction? Means Jesus was not beheaded. I will be beheaded. Jesus was not drowned. I was drowned. Jesus was not, whatever didn't happen to Christ, St. Paul says, I will take some of that to me to help in that, and fulfilling that suffering for the church. Of which I became a minister, right? According to the stewardship from God. Again, that's a reminder to them that he is the one who carries the knowledge of salvation. He is their apostle. So if they listen to someone else as if they are actually getting out of that, they reject him as a minister, as an apostle. Yes.
To fulfill the word of God, the mystery which has been hidden from ages and from generations, but now has been revealed to the saints. To them, God willed to make known what are the riches of the glory of this mystery among the Gentiles, which is Christ in you, the hope of glory. Him we preach, warning every man and teaching every man in all wisdom, that we may present every man perfect in Christ Jesus. To this end I also labor, striving according to his working which works in me mightily.
Chapter 2, Sandra.
For I want you to know what a great conflict I have for you and those in Laodicea. For as many as have not seen my face in the flesh, that their hearts may be encouraged, being knit together in love, and attaining to all riches of the full assurance of understanding, to the knowledge of the mystery of God.
What's the stress here on?
On knowledge?
On knowledge. The true knowledge, right? Yeah.
To the knowledge of the mystery of God, both of the Father and of Christ, in whom are hidden all the treasures of wisdom and knowledge.
Exactly. So you want to know anything? He says, don't go through that other system. It's a fallen system. You want to know everything, the knowledge that you are seeking. The Gnostics are keep igniting the desire for knowledge. They preach, we have the knowledge, we have it. So what's St. Paul saying? Don't be deceived. All the knowledge that you're seeking is found in Christ, but it's a mystery, hidden. For a person to come to Christ, and if they come closer, what will happen? It will be revealed to them, right?
Now this I say,
that's why he said it's hidden, in whom are hidden, meaning it's not obvious. People, Christians, think they got it. That's all what to know about Christ. I know it. What's new? I've heard it before. No, not at all. It is actually hidden. It's actually hidden, yes.
Now this I say, lest anyone should deceive you with persuasive words.
Who's that? Who's that going to be deceiving them with persuasive words? The Gnostic cults, right?
For though I am absent in the flesh, yet I am with you in spirit, rejoicing to see your good order and the steadfastness of your faith in Christ. As you therefore have received Christ Jesus the Lord, so walk in him, rooted and built up in him and established in the faith. As you have been taught, abounding in it with thanksgiving. Beware lest anyone cheat you through philosophy and empty deceit, according to the tradition of men, according to the basic principles of the world, and not according.
So here it is, the basic principles of the world. He is not saying, he's not developing a terminology. It's not like St. Paul's doing it. This is actually known philosophies. What are the basic principles of the world? The four things. The basic elements of nature, the earth, the fire, the water, and the air. The laws that regulate the fallen humanity, especially the one that regulates the universe, especially the fallen humanity, which is death, sin, the flesh, and the Mosaic law. The spirits, they teach that as basic principles of the world, that these spirits work against Christ by working through the conditions. That's why people leave Christ. For example, I'm going to just share with you. Many people go, for example, and become Buddhist or Muslims Why? Because to them, the teaching, the basic introductory level of Islam or Buddhism fits more into the carnal mind, fits more into their fallen humanity. They say, I think in Islam I found more stuff that satisfies. It's real, they say, it's real. You're not asking me for something that it is not real. Like, for example, another thing, so a man can marry 4 wives and can have a relationship with whomever he wants. If they agree, they can divorce and marry another one. While in Christianity you cannot divorce your wife. Why? Because it's requiring us to be Christ-like. So if there is a system that fits into my desires and lusts, wouldn't that be easier for me? If the methods I'm using to become at peace is offered based on all my human activities, only me, in a Buddhist way, so I can put myself in a special way, or a special garden, or a special position and meditate into yoga. I can do this. This is my human ability. This is what I can do. Why do you ask me to go and aspire for something that I can't believe or see? You see what happens? So these spirits use the fallen conditions to fight against Christ's law. You get what I'm trying to say? These theologies, these philosophies use the fallen human condition to convince humans that's all what you have, this is what you're going to work with. Don't expect help from heaven. There's nothing coming. So this cancels faith. That knowledge that Christ given us through faith. Okay?
For in him dwells all the fullness of the Godhead bodily.
Again, what's that? That's it. This B, right? The Godhead, the whole nature of God is in Christ. So we come to Him, we're in direct contact with God.
And you are complete in him, who is the head of all principalities.
So first of all, He says you're complete, you lack nothing. In Him, you lack nothing, but you have to come closer to Him and to be in Him. And He goes to say, what? And He is the head of all principality and power.
Which is A.
Right. Okay? Now, he's going to contradict again the other one, the human tradition. Yes?
In him you are also circumcised with the circumcision made without hands, by putting off the body of the sins of the flesh by the circumcision of Christ, buried with him in baptism, in which you also were raised with him through faith in the working of God, who raised him from the dead.
The ritual that is needed, right?
Is that
Yes. The ritual that is needed, it is not circumcision, where is that? The Mosaic law. The ritual is needed is not to fulfill that, but actually has something new that Christ is offering, and that's baptism. And then,
And you, being dead in your trespasses and in uncircumcision of your flesh, he has made alive together with him, having forgiven you all trespasses, having wiped out the handwriting of requirements that was against us, which was contrary to us. And he has taken it out of the way, having nailed it to the cross. Having disarmed principalities and powers, he made a public spectacle of them, triumphing above them.
what does that mean?
A. I
Right.
A for that one.
Right. Yeah, this is the hierarchy. He's actually in the cross, all these principalities and spirits that's trying to take our human condition to work against us. Jesus had done what in the cross? He has shamed them, humiliated them. What does it mean? That they were shown very clearly lower, inferior to Christ.
So let no one judge you in food or in drink, or regarding race. Let no one cheat you of your reward, taking delight in false humility and worship of angels.
Here we go. What's worship of angels? That is Gnostic hierarchy worship, right? Intruding
Intruding into those things which he has not seen, vainly puffed up by his fleshly mind, and not holding fast to the head, from whom all the body, nourished and knit together by joints and ligaments, grows with the increase that is from God. Therefore, if you died with Christ from the basic principles,
again. So Jesus died so we actually get out of the basic principles of the world. All that. He died so that we get out of that.
therefore, if you died with Christ from the basic principles of the world, why, as though living in the world, do you subject yourselves to regulations? Do not touch, do not taste, do not handle. which all concern things which perish with the using according to the commandments and doctrines of men. These things indeed have an appearance of wisdom and self-imposed religion, false humility, and the neglect of the body, but are of no value against the intellect.
What is this? False humility, neglect of the body, and a self-imposed religion. What are they? Mysticism is the neglect of the body. Mystic, like monks and stuff, what they do, the austerity of it, they fast, they watch, they don't fulfill the desires of the flesh. That's mysticism. The second one, asceticism. Mysticism is the requirement of peace, like the Buddhist, right? Mysticism. They requires peace and getting in touch with God. What about liturgical, the religion? These are the three items that he is defying. He's saying people invent religions, so they actually give you a false worship, a false asceticism, and a false mysticism. So what's he saying? He says, these things indeed have an appearance of wisdom. In self-imposed religion, that's liturgical, false humility, and this is asceticism, neglect of the body, asceticism, but of no value against the indulgence of the flesh. Like it's not going to have any strength to fight your desires. Okay? Okay? So where do we have the true mysticism? In Christ. Where do we have the true asceticism? Like for example, in monastic movement that was Christ-centered. How about where true religion, true liturgical worship in the church? Right? Let's go. Say 3. Robbie, want to read 3rd?
Yeah. If then we're raised with Christ, seek those things which are above where Christ is, sitting at the right hand of God. Set your mind on things above, not on things of the earth. For you died, and your life is hidden with Christ in God. When Christ, who is our life, appears, then you also will appear with him in glory. Therefore put to death your members which are on the earth, fornication, uncleanness, passion, evil desire, and covetousness, which is idolatry. Because of these things, the wrath of God is coming upon the sons of disobedience, in which you yourselves once walked and you lived in them. But now you yourselves are to put off all these anger, wrath, malice, blasphemy, filthy language out of your mouth. Do not lie to one another, since you have put off the old man with his deeds, and have put on the new man, who is renewed in knowledge according to the image of him who created.
Again, renewed in knowledge. He's not canceling knowledge, but he's saying there is true knowledge and there is false knowledge. Where there is 11?
Where there is 11?
Neither Greek.
There is Greek, where there is neither Greek nor Jew, circumcised nor uncircumcised, barbarian,
Scythian.
slave nor free, but Christ is all and in all. Therefore, as the elect of God, holy and beloved, put on tender mercies, kindness, humility, meekness, long-suffering, bearing one another and forgiving one another. If anyone has a complaint against another, even as Christ forgave you, so also you must do. But above all these things, put on love, which is the bond of perfection, and let the peace of God rule in your hearts, to which you also were called in one body, and be thankful.
That's where he spells out the asceticism and the mysticism.
Let the word of Christ dwell in you richly in all wisdom, teaching and admonishing one another in songs and hymns and spiritual songs, singing with grace in your hearts to the Lord. And whatever you do in word or deed, do all in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks to God the Father through him. Wives, submit to your own husbands as is fitting in the Lord. Husbands, love your wives, and do not be bitter toward them. Children, obey your parents in all things, for this is well-pleasing to the Lord. Fathers, do not provoke your children, lest they become discouraged. Bondservants, obey in all things your masters according to the flesh, not with eye service as men pleasers, but in sincerity of heart, fearing God. And whatever you do, do it heartily as to the Lord and not to men, knowing that from the Lord you will receive the reward of inheritance, for you serve the Lord Christ. For he who does wrong will be repaid for what he has done, and there is no partiality.
So here's moving from the theology to Practice, exactly. 4, you want to do, Ruby? Okay, Mary, go ahead. David, go ahead.
Masters, give your servants what is just and fair, knowing they also have a master in heaven. Continue earnestly in prayer, being vigilant in it with thanksgiving. Meanwhile, praying also for us, that God will open to us a door for the word, to speak the mystery of Christ, for which I am also in chains, that I may make it manifest, as I ought to speak, walking wisdom towards those who are outside, forgiving the time, that your speech always be with grace, seasoned with salt.
What does it mean, seasoned with salt? We're finishing here. It's a thing that is said a lot. What does it mean when something is seasoned with salt? Like say, I bring you a piece of steak and some rice and some salad, huh? And some fries, but they have no salt. What would it feel like?
Well,
Would you be able to eat it?
no.
I mean, yeah. we could just-
If you're very hungry, but if you're not hungry, what does salt make?
Flavor.
Taste, right? Flavor. It is very difficult to give words that is not seasoned. Meaning what? What is it? What does it mean? The words are seasoned.
Refined?
Huh? Huh?
Like refined?
No, seasoned. It is useful to eat meat that is not seasoned. It is useful because you're going to eat protein.
No, like graceful. Like
Graceful, right? It's seasoned with love. So if I love you and I care for you, my words will come, even if they're useful. I can give you a lecture, but if I don't love you, what happens? You'll say, it's tasteless. I don't like it. But if I love you and I care about you, then the words will come differently. It comes with concern. It comes with enthusiasm. It comes with attention. It comes with all these ingredients that is not really the main message, but it helps to. If I give you a sermon and I'm not giving you a story, it's not seasoned. If I give you a talk and I'm not giving you some kind of exciting, stimulating stuff, it's not seasoned, okay?
Wait, what is redeeming time?
Redeeming the time. Good. Let's out the other one. What does redeeming time means? Redeeming the time. Because he's saying, redeeming to what does redeem mean? To buy back. To get back. As if time is going to be
Waste.
against our wish. Somebody comes and take that from me by force. So what should I do? I should take it back. Well, how I should take back. So example, what's he saying? There will be times you will have no way of doing what you want to do. School time, exam time, time that you need to work for something that is not important. There is category, they call it category 4 or category 3. That things, that emergency that comes. This time will be wasted against your own will. So what should you do? In the time you are free and you're in control, what should I do? I work
Hard.
double so that I actually make for the time that's redeeming time. So I have control over my time now. What should I do? I do every effort. Sleep is part of it. If you need to sleep, it's fine. But don't oversleep because that's going to be taken from time.
So don't waste time.
Don't waste it. That's the point. Don't waste time because there will be time that you're not going to be able to control. So that time that is lost from you against your will should be redeemed when you are in control. Does that make sense? Like, don't waste time because the time will be wasted against your will. So the time that is not wasted, you should use it to the maximum. Either rest, which is okay. Sleep, if you need sleep. Or build up your relationship with your family and friends. What else you do? Study, recreate, do something useful that you think is important in the time you have control over, because the time will come when you cannot have control. That's the redeeming time. Because the days are evil. That's what he would say. There is another place that he says, redeem time for the days are evil. What does it mean?
What verse is that?
That's verse number 5.
In my Bible it says school days. In my Bible it says school days.
They're not the evil days.
School days are evil.
So redeeming time for the days are evil meaning what?
School.
Like, work now because you don't know what will happen in the future. So that's what Solomon would say. Know the Lord in the days of your youth, because in the old days you come days that we will not be able to. We'll say it's evil, I cannot do anything. I wanted to do prostrations. I get to be 60 or 65, my knees get double rheumatoids or rheumatics, and then I cannot bend them. I want to stand and pray, but my back is hurting when I'm older. Then I couldn't do it. I think I'm going to do it later, but it's not going to happen, right? Okay. So season was so that you may know how you ought to answer each one, and that's it. Should stop here. We're done the Colossians. I want you to remember this. This will be the questions. Okay. Let's say our Father, in the name of the Father and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Our Father who art in heaven. May the love of God the Father and grace of His only begotten Son, Jesus Christ, and